Hello and welcome back, guys. Today we are going to go ahead and work with the basic shape tools in Adobe Illustrator and eventually learn how to use the shape builder and talk a little bit about anchor points. So I'm going to try and knock out some of these real quick here. So remember, we have the stroke and the fill. You've got your properties panel over here. If you don't have your window set or your workspace set to essentials, we want to make sure it's set to essentials. And I do also like to have up here under window have the control checked, and that gives me this extra control bar here. It's going to replicate some things that are over here, but I like to have it. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead over here. I'm mainly going to be using the tools that are under the rectangle tool for the most part here. So when you click and hold, you're going to see some different options. I'm going to go ahead right now and change my fill from white to something a little bit easier to see. I'm going to just go with this lime green. You can really make it whatever color you want. So we're going to do two for each of these shapes. We're going to have one that has a fill and one that just has a stroke. So for right now, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the stroke, red slash. So I just have a fill and no stroke. Let's zoom in. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in and get a little closer here. And first thing we do is make a square. So you remember, you click and drag with the rectangle tool, and you can look for that purple line, but the quick way to do it, hold that shift key, holy shift, hold that down, and you're going to get a nice perfect square. As soon as we have that square, and it looks pretty good, that's basically what we're replicating there. We can go ahead over to the selection tool or hit V on the keyboard, and we have that. We can move it around. Of course, you could resize it by grabbing the handles. And quick way to duplicate it, of course, we could copy and paste, Control C, Control V. It's going to paste the copy, but again, remember that you can also take your selection tool, hold the Alt key down on the keyboard, and drag that, and you get a copy. So now we're just going to take, we've got one version here with a fill, and we're going to take and make this a stroke. So we can go over here and flip the arrow here. It's going to flip those, or if you notice, the quick key right there is Shift X. So there we go, we flip it over, and I'm going to go ahead and crank up the stroke on this a little bit, make it a 2-point stroke, and there we go. So now we've got our shape version and our fill version. I'm going to basically repeat this process, the circle. Let's do that one quickly. Hold down the shift key, and I've got my circle right there. Grab my selection tool, put that down here, hold Alt to duplicate, and then I'm going to hit Shift X. It's going to flip those, Shift X. There we go, and I'm done. Triangle, how do we do that one? We're going to go in here, and I'm going to click and hold, and I'm going to get the Polygon tool. So there's a couple ways to do this. If I click and drag, it's automatically defaulting to a triangle because I think that's the last one that I chose, but if you do it, it's probably going to default to the hexagon. So if you click and drag, it is going to make some sort of polygonal shape with multiple sides. Let's try another way, though. I'm going to just click once. So I'm not going to click and drag. I'm going to click once with the Polygon tool, and you're going to get a pop-up, and it's going to ask you how many sides do you want, and the radius is just basically from the center point out to the corners. I'm not really sure about that, but I'm just going to leave it the default, and I'm going to say 3 sides, please, but you could make it however many you need. So let's do 3. Hit OK, and my triangle is right there. So now I can grab that triangle with my selection tool. If I hold down Shift, it's going to maintain the proportion. You let go of Shift, it's going to distort. So hold down Shift, and there we go. Another fun little trick here. I'll go ahead and duplicate this by hitting Alt and dragging. But one other fun little trick that you'll notice, there's this little diamond shape right here. So whenever you make a polygon and then you have your selection tool, you can actually drag this and manage the number of sides that it has. So it's a pretty nice little feature that they've added in here. You can take that little diamond and play around and get, more sides or fewer sides if you want. All right, Shift X, flip that to a fill. We're going to do the same thing. Click, and this time we want 6 sides for a hexagon, 6 sides. There we go, easy. Ready to go. Take that right there. Hold down Alt to duplicate it. Going back to this one, select it, Shift X to fill. Let's keep on moving on right here. Star, well, guess what? There is a star tool. Click and hold, get my star tool. And again, if I click and drag, it's pretty much going to make the star by default pretty close to what we have. And if I hold down that Shift key, again, it's going to kind of keep those nice angles for you. So I can go ahead and do that. Grab my selection tool or hit V. and I've got my star, and I'm going to hold down Alt. I'm going to drag that out, and then again hit Shift X to flip those, Shift X, flip my stroke and my fill, and there we go. So this one, what do we do? Well, this is going to be using the star tool as well, but this time we're going to tell it to have more than 5 sides. So what I didn't show you last time is if you click on the star tool, and just like with the polygon tool, if you click once, it's going to say, hey, how many sides or how many points do you want to have on the star? So the default is 5, but I can make it 500 if I want. So I'm going to go ahead, and for this one, I think this is supposed to be, I didn't scroll up here, but I believe I said 40 points. So let's do 40. And then just to kind of explain this real briefly, the radius 1 is the outside radius, so the points from the center point. And the inside radius, radius 2, is going to be the inner radius for the inside of that star. So the default is about half the distance. So if this is, 30, then that means this is going to be about 15. So that's kind of the default. You can, of course, play with those two radii, but I'm just going to default. Let's do 30 and 15 and see what that looks like. 30, 15, 40 points on my star. And there we go. That looks pretty good. Let's flip that to a fill. So there's my fill. So yeah, that replicates pretty well what we have there. Again, you can play around with some of those dimensions. Hold down Alt, move that down here. Shift X to flip it, and it looks pretty good. So again, you can kind of play around with the dimensions there and see what else you can come up with. Okay. All right, these last two are going to require us to do something a little bit different. We have to actually build these in a more custom way because there isn't a teardrop tool or a leaf or eye tool. So we need to figure out how to actually do this. So I'm going to go ahead and save this video, and then we're going to pop back in here and I'll talk about these last couple on the next video. So I'll see you in the next one, guys.